We'll be starting in a few minutes. I want to remind if anybody's new in the room, so you're probably tired of hearing this. If you wish to speak tonight, be sure you fill out a yellow speaker's card, turn it in, please print so we can read it. We want to limit this to 2 minutes. Be respectful of everybody's time. Please, 2 minutes. You'll hear an alarm go off at 2 minutes, and then you'll see a red flashing light, 2-minute mark.
Good. That's an Australian vehicle. So funny. So the army is on the vehicle. Chief of Tack. He's an expert. So the Australian vaccine. He says they got all high speed. He said the Japanese like what a soldier's head, and they're wearing that. It's cool. He says it's a good experience. He said it's a good experience. Reload his FN.
We got a bunch of Australians here. Here it's not. AG12 comes in, gives them a spiel about staying at jail in Jackson. So we're saying that it's all right here in 295 east side. And I just feel like it's here. They're going to be here running the aircraft running. So they have manuscript.
Oh, from the US.
Yeah.
I got you.
So they're running
It's good. Yeah.
That's what I'm going to tell them.
Okay. Too far away. One push here. Okay.
Now, strangely enough, that road that goes into Ramsgate is Scotland.
Yes.
That kind of goes this way. This is this way.
Yeah. My mom's lived right there when we got back in this. About probably a block or two in.
A lot of people who are at that meeting, plus I'd already taught. I go to talk that Ramsgate group every year.
Okay, good.
So that's good. We have Mickey.
You ready?
Yeah.
Yep, let's
We're
do
there.
it.
All right, good evening. My name is JAXSHERIFF, and I'm the Zone Commander for the Downtown District. I would ask first that you please stand and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Please be seated. At this point, I'm going to introduce to you Chief Mike Carter from FSCJ. He's going to talk to us about the college campus that we're on right now.
Good evening, everybody. Thanks for coming. I just want to point out a few housekeeping things as far as your emergency exits are back here. These will lead you outside. This last one here. We've got more exits here that can go out the building that way or back to the main lobby. That's also where your restrooms are going to be. Back out to the main lobby. Big security office. It's got the last one there, but just to the left of that. As far as rules for the event, please remember, like I said outside earlier, this is a college campus. I know they'll set their decorum for your questions, but it is a college campus. We need to keep the level monotone in here. We have students in class. We have students testing. Okay? And let's have a good event. Thank you.
All right, thank you, Mike. All right, and at this point, I'm going to introduce to you Sheriff Mike Weems, who's going to update us on the body-worn project.
All right, thanks, Jackson. Thank everybody for coming out tonight. So I think many of you, some of you at least, have been to some of the other town hall meetings, so this format will be similar to that. So what I'm going to do tonight, what the intent is tonight, is for us to, or me to share with you what we've gotten from those 6 town hall meetings. As many of you know, this is the 7th meeting that we've had, reference body-worn cameras, and the first conversation, not the only conversation, but the first conversation we have with the community about what the camera project is all about, what we hope to achieve from it, and all of the aspects of it. Especially now in the development stage, as we begin to, we're digging into process and digging into procurement and all those issues that are so important to make sure that we build the camera program the right way here in Jacksonville so we can sustain it, obviously. So tonight, again, is a recap. So you may have heard a lot of this before, and that's okay. But again, it's some feedback that we've gotten from you over the course of the last 6 town hall meetings. If you have not heard as of yet, the body camera policy, we just posted it online this afternoon, this evening. So you can go, as we make reference to policy, and a lot of the questions that we got over the last 6 weeks about policy can be answered by looking at and reading that policy. So again, posted online for everybody to see. It's the same exact policy that we will use inside the organization. I'll tell you this, it's marked draft at this point because as we move into the pilot phase of the body camera program, we want officers to weigh into certain aspects of that policy. I just talked to Lieutenant Smith and Lieutenant Hotard. Director Davis is not here with us today. They did a tremendous job on this policy. I think as you read it, you will see that. Those of you who have been following along and are really informed about projects like this, when you see that policy again, I think you'll be pleased, as I was. So really, I want to thank them for that work that they did. Thank you guys publicly for all the hard work that they've done. So I had a couple people to intro to the room. I want to thank I see John and Joyce Morgan. John, thank you guys for being here. And there were a couple other people I was looking for. I don't see Senator Gibson. She may not have made it. Okay. Well, good. So with that, let me go through and read a couple comments, and then just like other town hall meetings in the past, we will have a Q&A session at the end. And my comments will be brief, but they touch on a lot of the questions and concerns that everyone in the community has had prior to tonight. So we'll do that, and then again at the end, we will have a Q&A session. We'll talk about the rules just briefly. Again, to be respectful of everybody's time. Gary has a timer. We'd ask you to keep your comments or questions to 2 minutes, and I'll respond to that, to whatever it is that you want to bring up in terms of the body camera program. So with that, let me go ahead and jump in. So again, thank you all for being here tonight. Again, if your questions or concerns tonight, if we don't get to them tonight, we will. If you don't get a chance to ask, which you should, looks like we have plenty of time. You can email us at jsofeedback@jaxsheriff.org, and we will make sure that you get a reply to that question. If for some reason we do not get to your question tonight, we will do the same. If you have email contact information there, we'll make sure that we respond to your question via email. So again, the goal here tonight is to recap and address the feedback and questions that we received that need to be answered. And I'll also update you as we move on to the status, or as to the status of the program. So a couple things about just the body-worn camera project in general. Body-worn cameras are not a silver bullet in policing. They are really a new and valuable technology. It's a very powerful tool, but it requires rules, and it requires policy and funding and infrastructure for it to be successful. So whatever we build, we must be able to sustain it. Other cities have done this in fits and starts. We chose instead to form a committee, and we have, up to this point, have taken 15 months to do due diligence and looking at this issue and this project really nationwide. So when we launch, we will be solidly grounded in best practices, best pricing, and policy that is sound and reflects input from our officers and the framework for conduct and usage that we require of them when they use any piece of equipment that we issue to them, be that a firearm, a taser, or a radio. So we studied equipment, and we continue to study this equipment as this technology is obviously changing rapidly. Now, we have studied policies from around the country, and we have a draft that may change again many, many times, as we have said. And that draft, again, if you came in late, has been posted on our website. So it's there for the entire community to see. And obviously, as we begin to roll out the program in mass to the agency, we're going to have new impacts that we didn't anticipate from the pilot program. So again, different things and different phases will impact the policy. When we have policy changes, we'll let the community know we had a policy change, and again, post that new policy online so again the community can follow along. But we studied performance at other agencies, what they liked, what they didn't like, what worked for them, what they would have done differently if they were in the position of just starting their program. And that was a great question that we got to ask agencies around the country. If you were starting today, if you were in our position, what would you do differently than what you did? And we got a lot of great feedback from them on that. When you talk about discipline for officers, there will be discipline for officers who violate the rules for the body camera use. But that use and those rules will be defined and understood by all parties before the first camera is worn outside of a pilot environment. So the discipline for officers that violate our policies with regard to performance in their duties already exists. So that process for citizens and in-house complaints to be filed on officers already exists. Officers are trained in policies that govern their performance and tactics, and we will continue to discipline those found to have violated these policies. The camera does not change any of that. It does, however, enhance our ability to determine the truth in certain situations. It can provide a valuable investigative piece of the puzzle for us in many situations, and that's really what that camera footage can provide. So let's talk a little bit about what we know so far about the rules of using a body camera in the state of Florida. So Florida State Statute 943-1718 governs the use of the camera by police agencies, and we will comply with this and all laws. Officers will receive the necessary and legally mandated training in the use of the device, and at this time we have a few certainties about some of the things that the officers will need to know and need to do in use of the program. So they will not be able to edit any footage. We know this. Only our Public Records Office will be able to redact them as legally allowed by law before a public record is released. They will be allowed to review footage before completing a police report, as again is allowed by law as of July 1 of this year. So they will honor the law with respect to a request that a citizen makes that a camera be turned off when there is a reasonable expectation of privacy. So again, that's outlined very clearly in the policy. A really good explanation of that in that draft that we posted online. They will have the discretion to cease recording when asked to do so by a citizen who wants to share information not for public record. That information could be suspect information, facts about a crime. That individual could reveal that they are a victim of a crime, or they could reveal the name of a crime victim. So when that request is made, the officers will have the ability again to deactivate the camera. Those instances where an incident or an encounter was not videoed will require the officer to submit in his report or document in his report what the exception was that allowed him to, again, deactivate that camera. So again, a level of oversight and accountability with the reports that are written. Keep in mind, we still write reports for every event. There are a variety of reports, and all of those may require at some level some documentation about why a camera was not activated, which again will be a pointer system for supervisors to monitor officers' use of the camera. So let's talk briefly about the equipment, about what we know. So as we mentioned, the technology is changing really every day. So we continue to review product offerings, and the cost really continue to decline as the technology improves. But we know that really our eyes can't be bigger than our stomachs. We have to buy only what we can afford and what meets our IT infrastructure needs, and really has to meet just our basic criteria to serve really as the body-worn camera for the agency. I do want to take a minute to thank Mayor Curry and the council for their support for funding our IT infrastructure refresh that is really ongoing at this point. We have felt years of budget crunches and cuts to IT services that really did not have us in a position to be able to support a body-worn camera program. So with those changes, we've been able to do that. So as we move through this pilot phase, we'll begin to build out our request for proposal as the technical pilot takes place this summer and obviously into the fall. This will be a competitive bid process by the city, open to all vendors who want to bid on the project. So as I mentioned earlier, the cost is changing rapidly as vendors continue to develop their products, and the pricing structures continue to evolve. But this technical pilot is done at no cost to taxpayers. The vendors who are participating in the pilot are providing their devices at no cost to the agency or the city. So future costs, there is money in the FY18 budget to address certain elements of the body camera program. A few personnel have been assigned to the body camera unit. We have some equipment cost, and ultimately at the end of the 17-18 budget year, the first purchase of the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office body-worn cameras. Not pilots, but cameras that we will roll out into operation into the city. So just a few more things. We'll talk about public records briefly. We touched on this earlier. Again, we're going to follow all laws in accordance to public records. Florida Records Law 119 provides for storage of records, which these videos obviously will become. And we will have to store these from anywhere from 90 days to 50 years, depending on what we capture on the video. We talk about the 90-day piece of video. The 90-day video will be the routine patrol of an officer in an area. We will save that video for 90 days. If there's no categorization of any of the video, in other words, if none of that is part of a crime scene, none of that's part of an investigation, that video will go away in 90 days. So as we have more conversations with the community about body cameras, one of the things we want to mention is that if you want to make a complaint against an officer and you want body camera footage to be part of that complaint, you have 90 days to make that complaint. You can still make the complaint anytime. You can make it 120 days. You can make the complaint a year later, obviously. But if you want body camera footage as part of that evidence, it has to be 90 days so that we can obviously be able to capture that and pull it in as part of the investigation. Once you do that, if it's the 89th day and we capture the video won't go away at that point. But we have to be able to get our hands on it before the 90-day mark to make sure that we have it, again, as we investigate that complaint. So again, we're preparing our infrastructure with the creation of the unit, as I just mentioned. They will handle the request from all involved and perform the legally allowed redactions, again, the redactions that are allowed by law. So couple of closing comments about body cameras, and then we'll start some Q&A. Body camera programs, again, they're not a panacea, as we talked about. They're not a magic bullet, but they are a great tool for us, a great tool for the community. What it won't change is the top priority of us connecting with the public. Does not take the place of that at all. So all of us giving citizens an opportunity to meet with us, know who's working in their neighborhood, and in some kind of non-emergency encounter is still a top priority for us. The body cameras, again, does not change that. It will enhance, again, one of our other top priorities, transparency in the organization. Again, not a magic bullet, but is a great tool to be able, again, to enhance transparency in the organization. It will not change our officers' commitment to protecting and serving this community. And we have people recording us now with their phones every day and making those public record. And this is just the world that we live in. You'll continue to get top-notch first-class service from the members of JSO, camera or not. But again, the cameras will not impact that. The body-worn cameras, again, will help us build better cases for court. And that is at the core of what we do as a law enforcement organizations. These cameras also give law enforcement an opportunity to have the facts of any situation at hand. And I expect, as we have seen in other cities, encounters between police and citizens can be more cordial with the introduction of a body camera. You have cities around the country that report a 25 to 40% reduction in complaints when they institute a body camera program. So is that police officers acting better? Is it citizens acting better in their encounters with the police? In my estimation, it doesn't really matter. If we can lower those complaints by that much and increase the civility by that much, then we're good. It's worth it at that point. So again, I hope you've I know we've gone through this quickly. Really a recap of what many of you have heard in other town hall meetings. But again, not the last conversation we have with the community about body cameras, just the first. Expect again another series of town hall meetings toward the fall probably of 2018, where we have our camera, we have the finalized policy, we can show you where the officer is going to wear the camera, what the camera looks like, and really work to set the expectations for the community about what you can expect to see in terms of the footage and the video, the rules of on and off, those type of things. We are still, obviously, as I said, in the development phase of this, but we want to make sure that we involve the community in these discussions as we've done here for these last 7 town hall meetings. So, as we said earlier, now's the time for questions. We'll be able to do that. I know we have some are you guys going to do the instructions for the questions? So right now I'll turn it over to Lieutenant Lolita Smith, and she will kind of give you the run of show on the questions. I have the policy here in front of me. I know there's not a paper copy out there, but so we can refer to this. I'll try to dig in if you have a question specific to the policy. We'll look at it. But again, I would encourage you to take a few minutes and read that policy, 20-page policy online, and I think you'll be pleased with what you see. So with that, turn it over to Lieutenant Smith.
Good evening. We have a lot of cards, so if you would, please be mindful. It's a 2-minute limit, so make your comments 2 minutes. The first person up is Mr. Todd Well, followed by Joshua Mitchell.
Man got killed a couple weeks ago by police, and I have a question about what is the protocol? What is the police protocol when being called and responding to domestic violence? Because that's what this call was, and this gentleman ended up being shot 5 times. That's one of the questions. I'll be brief. We got some issues in the country. They're moving to the right. How quicker we can say it. We have Jeff Sessions in office now. So I'll come back to Jacksonville. My question is, on April 7th, when Gary Snow provoked violence in Hemming Park, why was he not arrested?
So the Hemming Park incident, again, we are in the process of an internal investigation on the use of force, and the state attorney's office is in the process of reviewing all the evidence to make a determination as to the charges that were brought against the individuals who were arrested, and was it appropriate that Mr. Snow was not arrested. So I think relatively soon you will see that from the state attorney. You'll see a comment from them about the disposition of those cases. I would look for that again from her office relatively soon. When that is finished, we can kind of move forward and wrap up the internal investigation piece on our part. So beyond that, not much left to say other than obviously the state attorney has that and is reviewing it, and of course we honor her decision on whatever she decides in those cases.
Mr. Joshua Mitchell, followed by Sharon McBride. If I pronounce your name correctly, I apologize.
Hello.
More.
So while I applaud Jacksonville Sheriff's Office for deciding to implement body cameras, I also understand that that will not stop your officers from killing unarmed citizens in the street, nor will it stop your officers from unconstitutionally or unethically arresting citizens. So my question to you is this. If it's the same killer cops on our streets that are sitting at a desk job reviewing this footage, where's the accountability in that? It doesn't actually make us any safer when it's the same corrupt system that is checking itself. So what steps are you, as our elected head of this publicly funded department, willing to do to bring police accountability review back into the community?
So I can tell you that I think in every aspect of what we do, transparency is key. If you can see what we're doing, and obviously there's a legal path that we follow in doing whatever review or whatever decision we make, we can follow that legally and show you where we follow the law in those cases. And again, be transparent about that. I think that answers those questions. We have to do a better job of being more transparent in some of our processes. I'll give you that. There's no doubt about it. And we continue to work on that. I think the body camera program is an example of really an opportunity for us to inject even more transparency into some of these processes. So, right now our response to resistance process closed to the public. That's a challenge for us. I'll be quite frank with you. It would be better for us if you could see that process play out, if you were able to watch that and see it. And at the beginning of the process, you could do that.
The question was, what are you, as our sheriff, willing to do to open up that process towards the community, towards public involvement?
Well, again, I think, as I was saying, things like the body camera program. Some of these things, as the RTR board, by court order, I can't open it. So authorities above me have said, no, we can't open that. So it's not open, and it can't be open. We have to do, again, through process, a good job, a better job of being more transparent with the community in the areas where we can. You're always going to have investigative windows of time where it's not appropriate to talk about things in the community. We don't want to jeopardize the integrity of any of these investigations. So when I have a witness come forward, I want to know that witness is telling me what he saw, not what he saw someone else say on television. I want to know firsthand what he saw. So there are times where you won't get a lot of information, but there's always an appropriate time where that information should be released to the public, and you should be able to walk through and see the steps that we took, again, following the law, and follow that to the logical conclusion that we made in the case. So, again, I think it's about building transparency in a lot of different processes, and that'll help with some of the concern.
Sharon DeBryer, followed by Terry DeBryer.
Good evening. I can't hear you. Go ahead. Yes, ma'am.
Did I just hear you say that public input was not possible in the development of the body camera policy?
You did not hear me say that. So we have just had 6 town hall meetings that was all about public input in the development of policy. So not only that, so we have had multiple meetings inside the police memorial building from groups all around the city, again, weighing into the development of that. So no, if you misunderstood me, if that's what you thought I said.
We want to make sure that there is some citizen input on the final policy.
Sure.
I just heard from a gentleman here today that Oklahoma City, they actually sat down, it was a citizens committee and the police committee, and they actually developed the policy together. And I guess it was frightening to both parties initially, but they came up, it sounds like it's really an excellent policy. Are you familiar with that?
I have not heard that from them, but again, we have sat down with many groups, inside the city, and gotten feedback on the policy, things that we are going to be accountable to them on. Are they in the policy? And if they're not in the policy, why are they not in the policy? So again, there's going to be there's a lot of conversation ongoing right now.
Is that online? Can you give that feedback online?
You can. There's an opportunity to give feedback online. It's at feedback@jaxsheriff.org. You can give it there. Absolutely.
Thank you.
You're welcome. It is. Let me make sure I got that right. It's feedback. JSO feedback. Thank you, Les. Yes, sir.
Police departments around the country that have implemented de-escalation training have seen decrease in injuries to both citizens and to the police officers. Also, the other thing that we've seen is a reduction in violence, reduction in complaints, and also an increase in respect in your community to the police force. So, what do you know about de-escalation training, and what are your plans to implement it?
Sure. So de-escalation, when you talk about de-escalation training, you don't find a category of that. Really, de-escalation is a concept that you really infuse into all of your training, and we have that here. So we only use the level of force that's necessary to overcome resistance. So we're only going to respond to what we get. Our reports are response to resistance. It's not use of force, and have been that way for many years. So we constantly watch that. We constantly evaluate, the force that officers use in encounters with citizens, and we actually are going to begin to post that data online so that you can see that. So every year you can see the uses of force, some statistical breakdown of what that looks like. But we are one of the only agencies in the country, when you talk about true de-escalation training, we're only, one of few, I'll say in the country, that every officer in the department goes through the crisis intervention training. There are some departments, most departments have a team of officers that do that training. That training is specifically designed to have an officer who gets engaged with someone with mental illness to be able to de-escalate that situation, rather than use force to overcome the person who's in a mental health crisis. So for us, we made the decision years ago that every officer should have that training. So it's part of our academy training before they ever hit the street. So they're all certified in that. We do refreshers with the mental health first aid which is, again, another form of really categorized mental health or de-escalation training. So, but de-escalation, again, is more of a concept, an idea that's infused in all of your training, and that's something that we prescribe to here. Absolutely.
But I saw in the videos was that the police used the ask make order, and then they make order. You forgot to do the ask just to make order, and did not implement any of the techniques that should have been used.
Sure, sure. Well, and let me say this briefly about that interaction in Hemi Plaza. And we've said this before. We didn't handle that protest very well. I'll be the first one to tell you that. We could have intervened a lot earlier and probably kept that from escalating the way that it did. So, and I think in protests since then, you've seen a little different posture from us on some of that. But again, a lot of that you'll see addressed, I think, when Ms. Nelson gives a final decision on that. But point well taken.
Christina Bonner, followed by Eleanor Wilson.
Thank you for hosting this.
Yes.
I just moved here, and from what I understand, there's a community initiative being started called JPAC, so the Jacksonville Police Accountability Council, and it's in order to have community control or some semblance of control over how our communities are policed. So my question for you is, do you believe that it's time for Jacksonville to have a police accountability committee?
So you would have to define that for me and tell me what exactly that is. I think I met with them already. But again, in terms of what the tasking is going to be, all that, I think there's a lot of work to do there. I do think this. I think that you have to be engaged with the community. And the community does have to have the ability to weigh into how we provide service to the community. Absolutely. Now, how do you get there? That's the devil's in the details there. But to have the community be part of what we do in policing Jacksonville, absolutely. Again, you got to work on the details of that. But I agree with you. You're welcome.
Eleanor Wilson, followed by Mike Todd. So over the past few years, we've seen a lot more in the media about unarmed citizens being killed by police officers. My question is, in an incident when a police officer is using excessive force and a person fears for their life or one of their fellow citizens, when is it acceptable for that person to intervene in a form of self-defense?
So here is the best advice I can give you of that. If you have an encounter with a law enforcement officer, the best thing that you can do is just follow his instructions and let that encounter end. So even if you don't agree with anything that the officer is doing from the very beginning, there's a lot of recourse. There's a lot of ways to address that rather than at that scene push back. The challenge with that is you don't know what the officer's perspective is at that time. You don't know what he's thinking at that time. The best way for that to happen, obviously, is to follow the instructions, and then after the fact say, look, I don't think I was treated fairly. I think that this should have happened or that should have happened. Or the officer didn't know this or he didn't know that or he didn't ask the right questions. And we have the ability, obviously, in many different ways for the community to reach out and share that information with us. And we take all those complaints very seriously, and we investigate each and every one of those complaints, following up with the complainants on the results of that. So the best advice I can give you is to obviously comply with the instructions that the officers are giving you, even if you don't agree with them, and then follow up with a complaint afterwards and say, look, I don't agree with the way that happened.
Right, but I would just state that sometimes people are complying with everything that's being told of them, or someone is deaf and unable to comply because they don't know what is being told to them. And it is possible that at the point where a complaint can be filed, a life has already been lost. Thank you. Mike Todd, followed by Maria Garcia.
Hey, Sheriff.
Hey, good afternoon.
I'm a proud graduate of FSCJ as well as UNF. And just starting out here, I'd like to let everybody know in the room this Gary Snow character, the guy who called a woman fat at our May Day rally last month, has put up videos at gun ranges on his social media accounts, shooting guns and saying things like, "It's time to take things into my own hands," and anti-fascist target practice, which leads me to believe my friends and I, if we stand up against Nazis, we could be killed. I will be filling out one of those complaint feelings very soon for you. And I know you say body cams are great, and you say they're not enough, which is true. With the events that happened on April 7th, there were several cameras as well as a live news camera, and things still happen. I'd like to know, where's the accountability of the officers on the scene? Where's the accountability of Mr. McEwen? I'd like to know where his accountability is. We need community control of the police, and we're moving forward with JPAC, looking into the legal steps to get this implemented. And as a witness to the events on April 7th, I'd like to ask a few questions. Where was Lieutenant Jimmy on April 7th? Don't remember his last name, but he tells me to call him Jimmy. He always helped us to keep Gary Snow away. Why did no one properly stand in for him to handle the way that he handled it when he wasn't there? Why was Gary Snow not arrested since he caused the police attack on peaceful demonstrators who have been protesting peacefully for 5 years? There's video evidence of him being pushed by an officer after getting physical with us several times. Then an officer grabs and attacks my friend. I thought my friend was dead for 3 hours, and his mother couldn't even see him in the hospital until he was bailed out. It took less than 24 hours for this city to raise $15,000 as we've been protesting peacefully for up to 5 years already. Thank you.
So let me answer. You had a couple questions in there. Hey, can you come back to the microphone? Make sure I get them all. So, where was Lieutenant Judge? Jimmy Judge. Jimmy Judge. So, we have, as you can imagine, 840 square miles that we provide service to in Jacksonville. Many lieutenants. He was not assigned to be there that day. And again, as I've said before, we didn't do a good job of handling that protest. I think if you've been involved, if you've been to a protest since then, I think you've seen a different type response. I hope you have.
I do want you to know, we had an officer tell us that he didn't like his health care as well.
He didn't like his health care? We appreciate it. I'll pass it on. And some of the, I'll wrap the rest of the concerns about the April 7th incident up as I did before. So, in terms of accountability, you've got internal oversight, you've got the oversight of the state attorney's office, looking at that case, all that video, reviewing those arrests. All of that is really in their hands at this point. That's how that system works. So they have everything that everybody has. There are people that have turned stuff over directly to the state, which we're absolutely are fine with, and that's more than appropriate. So you should see some kind of adjudication of all of that in the next few days come out from the state attorney's office, and that will answer many of these questions. Again, those decisions not made by the sheriff's office, but made by the state in terms of the adjudication of that. So, and it will address some of our actions at the scene as well, and we can talk a little bit more about that when those findings are released. So, you're welcome.
Maria Garcia, followed by Catherine Corby.
Hello.
Hello.
My question. During the events of April 7th at Hemming Park, several live video recordings captured JSO using excessive force on protesters, including an older veteran. And you have stated that there was no excuse for things to go the way that they did during the protest and that we all could have done a better job. Yet, no officers so far have been disciplined for handling the confrontation in such a poor way. Why do you think body-worn cameras would make a difference in the way that officers behave towards citizens, especially when they already know that in today's society, cameras are always rolling, and they still continue to use excessive and even deadly force? It seems that these officers behave the way they do because they really don't think there's going to be any repercussions. What are you doing? What are you going to do in the future to make sure that officers know that there will be repercussions for excessive force?
So I would say this. I would challenge you to look at the track record of our organization in terms of holding people accountable, up into including arresting police officers when they violate the law. We don't hold back on that. If we get clear evidence of that, we take action immediately when that happens. In terms of this case, as I've said before, the adjudication of all of this is really in the hands at this point of the state attorney's office. So did the officers use excessive force? We will look at that. I know the state attorney's looking at that. Were the arrest appropriate? Again, the state attorney will be able to weigh in on all of those claims. Your comment about body cameras, and officers' conduct. Listen, we're all on camera all the time anyway. I think you'd agree. I think that's your point. We have to continue to work to improve relations in the community. Body cameras do a lot more than just focus on officer conduct. Again, they do a lot in terms of transparency. Incidents that occur that, whether it's appropriate or not, are captured on video. So we can show video of appropriate incidences. And we can say, look, this is okay. Here's what happened and here's why it happened. And you can see all that. I think it helps to probably clear some of the narrative about, interactions between police and the community. So more benefits than just that from the body cameras, which makes the project well worth it, obviously. And again, all the questions surrounding the April 7th incident, I feel certain that in a few days you will get a lot of those answers, again, that I can't really provide you tonight. Thank you.
Catherine Cordy, followed by James B. Inger.
Good evening.
My concerns are very similar to Maria's, so I'm going to try not to be too repetitive, but I'd like to know, hold on 1 second, I just lost my note, pardon me. How exactly are body cameras going to help police accountability in light of cases like the JAXSHERIFF, where ample video evidence of Gary Snow assaulting protesters and making physical contact with police officers, as well as assaulting protesters and ignoring the crowd, informing them that the man they were beating and tasing as they pinned him to the ground was deaf and could not hear his commands to comply. But despite all the footage that proved official police reports were lies, the people have yet to get justice. Now, we just got good news that Connell Cruz and Dave Schneider's charges have been dropped, but Gary is on camera. Gary is on camera breaking the law, assaulting officers, and he is yet to be detained. He's also currently using the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office logo on his Jacksonville Code Blue page. I'm confused. Does he work for your office? Did you allow him to use your intellectual property? Does he represent JSO? I don't know, and as a member of the community, that concerns me. Because after what I saw April 7th, I am horrified of the police. I have panic attacks every time I see an officer in uniform. Officer McEwen, after brutalizing my friends, pushed me into traffic and lied about the fact. I have that on camera. How are body cameras going to make me and these people in the community trust your office after incidents like that? I have no trust. I have no faith. What are you going to do to restore that?
So let me start by saying this. So I think there's an impression tonight that there is some sort of resolution to the April 7th incident. Keep in mind that these things take time to look at and to evaluate. We have yet to adjudicate anything in this case other than the two charges that were dropped that we heard of today as well. So there's still work to be done in that. And I think some of the expectation about it being done quickly, camera footage is fantastic. It's a great part of what we do. It's a great part of what the body camera program will provide. It may not speed up some of these processes. You still have to evaluate the arrest, evaluate the reports, interview everyone involved. All those things take time to do. So when that is resolved, we will come forward and say, hey, here's the findings. Here's what we know. Looking at the footage, reading the reports, interviewing the witnesses, here's what we've determined. So again, body camera footage is a piece of it. It's not all of it. And that footage from April 7th is a piece of it, not all of it. And all of those things are still obviously being worked, at this point. So again, I think that the resolution or the adjudication from the state attorney will answer a lot of these questions, and that ball is in her court right now.
But besides the body cameras, what is your office doing to gain community's trust again?
So let me tell you this, we work constantly, every day, in the community to build trust, to build relationships really down at the neighborhood level. So we're working and walking neighborhoods. I'm walking neighborhoods. Lieutenants, officers, sergeants are walking neighborhoods. We just did a neighborhood walk Monday at 45th and Dodge out off of Moncrief. It's about really, creating an environment where we have an interaction with the citizen beyond some kind of police service call. So, our neighborhood walks, you knock on the door and basically ask the community, hey, how's the neighborhood and how can we help? And the more we do that, the more we build trust. Again, down at that neighborhood level. We're seeing some gains from that. I can point to this weekend where we had a tragic weekend, 9 shooting incidents around the city this weekend. 4 of those we made arrests in that same weekend. We only did that because we had the support of the community. Things that, I can point to we may not have had in years past. Lots of cooperation we get in these cases from the community. So the more we work to build that relationship, and it's really that simple, having interactions with the community, beyond some kind of police service call. So whether it's coffee with a cop, whether it's neighborhood walk, whether it's interactions we have with parents and kids at PAL, or in many of our nonprofit partnerships around the city, all that works to build trust. All that works to build relationships. You can't build trust until you have a relationship with somebody. You got to start there. And that's what we're doing every day.
What about the intellectual property question? Have you allowed Gary Snow to use your logo?
So we don't, as we have been told by our general counsel, have the ability to stop that as of yet. So again, it's something that we're looking at. Not a trademark issue, not a trademark item. So there's nothing that we currently can do. Looking to resolve that, not just because of Mr. Snow's usage. We have other usages of the logo that we don't approve of. So we need to work on that, and again, it's something that we have to work on through the General Counsel
I'm
Office.
concerned about people falsely identifying themselves as a police officer affiliated with the police force, and I want to know that logo is something I can trust.
Absolutely. Thank you.
James Eanger, followed by Catherine Pierce.
Hi, my name is Jim.
Yes, sir.
I'm an active member of the Democratic Party. Our current Democratic chair, State Senator Audrey Gibson, said she spoke to you about police accountability, and more specifically, the situation concerning the protesters in Hemming Park on April 7th. I was wondering if you could comment a little bit on that conversation, and how she has helped you with this process around police accountability.
Good, great question. Actually, the senator and I have spoken a few times about the incident on April 7th, and probably right after the first time that the incident occurred, we had a conversation, right? And she has helped. She has helped weigh in, provide a perspective, not just on this issue, but on many issues, and I value her input on that. So I think when we talk about that, we talk in terms of building relationships with the community, being transparent with the community. I mean, those are the things, again, that we've got to do to work to.
Can you make comment on some of the suggestions?
And that's, I am. I mean, when we talk, without getting into specific detail, it's about working hard to build relationships in the community. Keep in mind that there's no mandate for any law enforcement agency in the country to go walk in a neighborhood, knock on the door, and say, how's the neighborhood and how can we help? It's smart. It makes sense. They should do it. There's no mandate to do that. But what we have taken the mantra here that we're going to do it every single day. So we feel like, look, if we're not moving ahead in the area of building community engagement, community relations, we're falling behind. And it takes a daily effort to do that. So the conversations that we have really are surrounding that, making sure that we, again, continue to work toward transparency, continue to build relationships. It's nothing that can happen overnight. It's not going to change overnight. But I think that we've come a long way in terms of at least laying the groundwork for how we want to move forward in the future.
Thank you, sir.
You're welcome. Thank you.
Catherine Pierce, followed by June Kent.
Yes, ma'am.
Question having to do with the Florida Department of Law Enforcement, and can you tell me currently does the Florida Department have the power to investigate any or all police shootings where there's a police involvement in withdrawal county?
So they do not. They play a role, but they don't independently do the investigation. So for us, when we have a police shooting, you have our investigators from the cold case unit that respond to interview witnesses and gather facts, along with attorneys and investigators from the state attorney's office that respond to do the same thing. So there's a concurrent effort that goes on there at the same time. FDLE processes all the forensic evidence from the scene for that. And if there is, unfortunately, a fatality, the medical examiner, a fourth agency, is involved in the investigation. So you've got really independent eyes from 4 different organizations looking at that incident. And again, all of that information lands with the state attorney. So no matter who gathers the facts or looks at interviews the witnesses, our state attorney in this circuit still makes the determination of whether or not the shooting was justified. Did the officer violate the law in the shooting? Once that decision's made, then it comes to the internal process of the review. That piece is only going to be the criminal element of the case has been cleared. The state has said there are no criminal charges that would be filed. However, the officer could still be disciplined, suspended, terminated, or for the incident for violating policy. So the policy review is the second part of that incident. Does that answer your question?
Pretty good.
Okay.
I'm not completely clear on, there is a role of the Florida Department of Law Enforcement in investigating an incident of police shooting.
They do some around the state. They do. Yes, ma'am.
Processing any of that, including evidence from cameras.
To have the evidence pulled from the body cameras. Again, we haven't. That's a hurdle we haven't crossed yet. My guess is based on the system that we would pull that and give it to the state, or the state can pull that. We give it directly to the state attorney's office. When I say forensic evidence at the scene, we're talking about fingerprints, DNA, things that may be part of that case. Those are the things that the science, that need to be proven by science. FDLE does that piece for us in those cases. Thank you.
Jim Kemp, followed by Ronald Neal.
Good evening.
My name is Jim Kemp. I'm a member of the Northside Coalition of Jacksonville. I just have one statement. We are here to demand that JAS stop shooting and killing unarmed black men.
Ronald Neal, followed by Lynette Atwater.
My name is Ronald Neal.
Yes, sir.
I'm the Northside Coalition of Jacksonville. But more importantly, I'm a concerned father of young black men and young grandson that is soon to be black men. My question is two-part, Michelle. In this pilot program for body cameras, since there are areas of town that have been deemed high crime areas, which are predominantly black, I assume, would those cameras be distributed mostly in those areas? And secondly, do you not feel that it's within the realm of human decency that when one of your officers discharges his weapon into a citizen of Jacksonville, that there's at least a legitimate reason why said officer did so, by you or the officer?
Sure. So first question is the, I'm sorry, tell me again, the body camera?
Yeah, but they be distributed mainly in the high crime areas.
So
I assume
we,
that's the black community.
So we're going to put them all over the city. So there'll be some, obviously, but there'll be some pockets of body cameras in the pilot citywide. So whether or not we break that down by the phases of the pilot, I'm not sure, but we want to see the camera in a variety of environments, and so we will deploy them all over the city. And I'm sorry again, second part.
Do you not, to put it plainly, do you not feel that the citizenry of Jacksonville does not hold a legitimate reason why when the officer fires into a citizen of Jacksonville?
A police shooting.
Waiting on information for several different situations.
So here's the process for that. So we do more than most agencies around the country. So we respond to the scene and we tell the community we've had a police shooting. We do 2 press conferences before the investigation is really even delivered to the state attorney's office. The first one is, hey, we've had a shooting, the basics of what we know, and we usually do a follow-up press conference the next day, the next morning, the next afternoon, again, to tell people, again, here's what we know up to this point. At that point in any investigation, you're not going to get a lot of comment moving forward, again, because we want to protect the integrity of that investigation. We want the facts of the case and the evidence of the case to lead us to that logical conclusion. So if every time I have a witness come forward and say, hey, I saw this, if I put that out on television, the next person that comes forward, I'm not going to know if they actually saw that or they just heard that from the other witness. And that's just not in police shooting cases. That's in any case. You want to keep that, keep the integrity of the investigation close. Once it's done, then I think posting the information online, again, which you'll see here in the next couple of weeks, to be able to show all of the aspects of the case is important. And in that resolution, you will find out, did the officer violate the law? And obviously, if he violated the law, he'd be prosecuted by the state attorney's office. Did he violate policy once it comes to us? If he's violated policy, he'd be terminated for that. So, and again, if you look at our track record, I think you'll see that we do a good job of holding officers accountable, both to criminal allegations or criminal violations and to policy violations. So, does that answer your question?
To a degree.
Okay.
So is that, if you're saying that there's an ongoing investigation as to shootings that may have happened some time ago?
Yes, sir. There is never going to be a shooting in Jacksonville. We don't close the loop on the investigation. So we will never have a police shooting, and then you never hear from JSO about the resolution of that case. That's not going to happen. So if there are shootings out there that we have not resolved as of yet, then there's nothing. If there's one in particular, then there hasn't been an adjudication made as of yet. So I think in listening to the comments tonight, one of the things we need to do a better job of is explain the timetable of the events. The April 7th events, again, a lot of that is still under review, not because we don't want to talk about the facts, just because it takes that long. And a police shooting is very similar. It takes a long time to put those cases together to make sure that we do cover all the bases and give it the attention it deserves, quite frankly. But then close the loop on that to make sure everybody knows, what the final answer to that case is. So.
Lynette Edgewater, followed by Grace Blaven.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Lynette Atwater, and I'm a member of the Northside Coalition of Jacksonville.
Yes, ma'am.
And I have two questions for you tonight. One of which is related to the body cam. Can you elaborate a little more for me relating to the monitoring and the actual review procedures for the data that's collected by those body cams? And my second question is this. You mentioned earlier that excessive force is based on resistance. And do you have any statistical information that shows how many unarmed African American citizens are shot and killed by African American officers if all of your officers are receiving the same amount of training? I don't hear as often those types of situations. So are they able to handle the situation in a better manner and de-escalate depending on the citizen? Or can you just kind of speak to that for us tonight?
So let me speak to that first. So we have all the data. We do have that. I don't know the numbers off the top of my head, but that is data that we can track and provide. So if you have narrow that down to a specific question, we'll get you the answer to that. In terms of training, everybody's trained the same way, but every police shooting is also different. So every one of these environments that these officers find themselves in with the subjects are going to be different. You have to look at each one of these individually. Not that you're not held accountable to the larger statistic. You can be, but in fairness, you need to drill down and look at each one of the circumstances of a police shooting. So, for example, take 10 shootings. This is all generic information. This is not coming from any statistical basis. But let's say if you have 10 police shootings, and the question is, why did you have 10 police shootings? You can look at many of those individually and say, okay, in 4 or 5 of those cases, the suspect was firing a gun at the police officer when he was shot. So that takes, a segment of those, not off the table. You're still responsible for that and accountable for that, but it gives you some idea of the circumstances around that particular encounter. Then you move to, he had a gun and presented it to the officer, fired it, had it in his hand, wouldn't drop it. You have those type of cases as well. So again, my point to all that is you've got to look at each one of those to drill down to the certain circumstances of every case.
And I was really referencing more the unarmed citizens.
Sure.
Shot.
Right.
In particular.
And your first part again, I'm sorry.
The first part was related to the body cam review process.
Right.
As far as the procedures related to that?
So you mentioned monitor in your question. So we will not live monitor the body cameras. So we have an officer wearing the camera. It's recording that information, but no one is looking at that encounter real time. And no system in the country does that, by the way. It's a recording type system. That's how it's done.
Really quickly, you mentioned that a citizen can request for the camera to be turned off. With that process, are you going to make certain that that statement is captured on the body cam before it is turned off? Because what I wouldn't want to see happen is that you don't get footage and the officer says, well, they asked me to turn it off. I think that needs to be captured.
Sure.
On the body.
And if I'm not mistaken, I think that's addressed specifically in the policy, that the officer, it's captured and the officer reiterates it on camera. Am I right with that, Lolita?
Yes, ma'am.
So, yes, ma'am. Thank you.
Grace Slavin, followed by Ben Frazier.
Notice now West Cadiz with the trucks on a rally this year. This made me very concerned for myself, my mom, all my friends behind me. So, why was Thursday not arrested on April 17th since he caused the police attack on peaceful demonstrators?
So again, I think the review of that is underway. The officers at the scene did not arrest. Nobody had charges to arrest on at that point. But based on the video footage, there's an ongoing review of that, and the determination is, again, yet to be made by the state attorney on that. So.
Ben Frazier, followed by Christine Heeman.
Good evening.
Good evening, Ben. You got the best voice in radio, by the way, I want to tell you. You do.
Now let's get down to it. Burnell Bing Jr. shot and killed more than a year ago. At that time, you said the officer unholstered his weapon for some unknown reason. And here it is, over a year later, and we don't know anything. Question. Let me put this the nicest way I can. What's taking so damn long? That's the first question.
You want me to answer that now, or you want to keep?
Right now.
Right now. I'm on it. So, if as you remember, we've and I don't want to speak for the state attorney, but we have a new state attorney that came into office in January. So I can tell you that's probably had something to do with the delay, and I can tell you that. So the delay. Keep in mind the delay. That's had something to do with the delay. The state attorney has that information now. So the investigation is in her office, and right now it's her decision. The next step in this case rests with the state attorney's office. So again, not speaking for her, but do, in deference to her.
We're waiting on her, is that it?
Absolutely.
I'll write that down. Okay, the Northside Coalition of Jacksonville is concerned, Sheriff, about a pattern or practice of racially discriminatory law enforcement in Jacksonville. What do I mean? 3 of every 4 people shot by Jacksonville police in the last decade, 96 out of 124 were black. Racially disproportionate. There is, in fact, empirical evidence of widespread racially disproportionate application of law enforcement in Jacksonville. These disparities constitute particular violations of civil rights of African Americans and other minorities. We've seen incident after incident after incident, and excuse after excuse after excuse. Would you allow, and this is rhetorical, but would you allow a fox to guard your hen house? No, you wouldn't. You're investigating yourself, Sheriff. We don't like it. Your internal investigations need to be halted, need to be stopped. And so here's the question that you don't have to turn to anyone else about. You can ask the FDLE to investigate all police shootings in Jacksonville. You can sign a memorandum The question, sir, is, are you ready to do that to substantiate all of your claims for wanting so much transparency? It's time to end the internal investigation. That's it.
Well, thank you, Ben. So as I mentioned before, the process that we have in place now to investigate police shootings is a model policy if you look around the country. We have 4, not 1, 4 agencies involved when it comes to the investigation of a police shooting. Us, the state attorney's office, again, who's going to make the decision. If FDLE investigates the shooting, that data lands in the state attorney's office, and she will make the determination, her staff, about whether or not the officer committed a violation of law. FDLE is currently involved in the process of the forensic evidence in the case. And if there is tragically a fatality, then the medical examiner is also involved. 4 different organizations weighing into that, not 1, but 4. I think the idea or the impression that a JSO detective goes to the scene and walks back to the office and shuts the door and comes back out 2 months later with a report that says the shooting is justified is incorrect. That is not the way the process works. And listen, we'll take some responsibility for that. We have not done a good enough job of explaining what the process actually is. So in that, go ahead.
Sure, we understand the process. These people are intelligent people.
Sure, absolutely.
Okay,
but you don't know the process unless we tell you.
The bottom line here is there's never been a police officer charged with anything. We don't like the results of your investigation. It always comes up the same. The victim is dead and the cop gets off. That's it. We don't like that. Now the question straightforwardly is, are you prepared to turn your back on those internal investigations and sign a memorandum of understanding that would allow the FDLE to begin investigations which would enhance trust and transparency and accountability between your agency and the community? You think maybe it's time? These internal investigations are always controversial. They're never thankful. Nobody's going to tell you thank you in the end. It's time to end it. Are you prepared to sign a memorandum of understanding, yes or no?
So that, again, based on my prior explanation, the answer is no. We have 4 agencies right now investigating these shootings. Again, a process that, if you look around the country, DOJ refers that process to people. So again, FDLE is involved currently with the forensic evidence. The state attorney is ultimately still the one that makes the decision, not JSO, in these cases about whether or not a officer is criminally charged or not. And so we've had many discussions about that. I know your position. You know mine. Yes, sir, it is. Yes, sir, it is.
Kristen Keeman, followed by B. and Gustavo.
Yes, yeah, go ahead, sure.
All right, so I'm Grace's mom. I have a couple of questions. Will you help create transparency in the JSO and hold officers accountable for their transgressions against unarmed citizens? And also, I just really genuinely want to know, do you think these body cams are actually going to keep people from reaching out for help and taking the law into their own hands? I mean, think about it. You are now publicly putting out their laundry, essentially. People don't want to be photographed. People don't want to be on television. They don't want to be shown. Do you really think this is the actual solution for the problem here in Jackson? I honestly don't see that. And this is actually an invasion of my privacy and my friend's privacy. And I do have a feeling that this will be held against us. I am here because I want transparency. If you are going to implement this, I want to have my fingers all over it.
Well, good. And so, as you've seen, I mean, we're welcome for input into the policy. This is the 7th town hall meeting. We will have more again, as I said, next year to be able to weigh in so everybody understands the use of the camera, what we do with the footage, all of that. There's no secrets in that. To your point about is this a valid project, a program, absolutely it is. I think you'll see around the country in the next 10 years, when an officer puts on a uniform, he's going to be wearing a camera. So, and you can, I'm sure you have seen examples of this Video footage is everywhere today. We all walk around with video cameras in our pockets today. However, we don't have any video cameras. So
my video camera is only one person. Yours becomes the law. Do you understand that? Do you see the difference?
no, mine does not become the law. Mine becomes a piece. Mine becomes a piece of an investigation.
Evidence, right?
Sure,
So is
absolutely.
your evidence equal to my evidence?
Is your evidence equal to
Yeah,
my evidence?
If I record
Yeah.
the same thing you record,
Right.
can they be both put into evidence equally?
Absolutely.
That's my
It
question.
happens today, as a matter of fact.
Can you cut and paste because I've seen things where you can turn it off. I mean, I've seen people are posting all over my Facebook right now, telling me in their city that the cops will turn them off and then turn it back on. So how does that make me feel more safe? That doesn't make me feel safe. That actually
Right.
makes me feel like I'm not even valid. You can dictate what evidence you have on me, and when you decide, this is not going to work for me. I don't think this is going to make me look good.
So well, let me tell you this. So that
Be held accountable for what you're doing.
absolutely.
If you're going to be recording us, you record all of it. Everything.
And I think so. Take some time to read the policy that we posted online today, and you'll see all you'll see. I think you'll be happy with what you see, and if you have suggestions and input to improve that, we'd be glad to hear that.
Perfect. All right, I'm going to read these.
Yes.
Okay. Critics say that Jeff Sessions' approach is a return to failed drug policies. With the 3 strikes rule, the fact that convicts serve more time in crack possession or crack cocaine possession, children being charged as adults, mandatory minimums, and all other practices implemented to profit the private prison industry. Disappointingly, they affect the minority communities. How does this affect us, and do you agree?
So I don't agree with what was in your comments. No, I don't agree with that. So let me tell you this: as it applies to Jacksonville, without making any apologies for DOJ or the Attorney General or any of that, my concern is Duval County and Jacksonville. And so we don't run a private prison in Jacksonville. We have the same jail system they have in every county in the state, obviously. And anything we can do to lower our jail population, we are good with. And we work constantly with people to be able to do that. I mean, we don't want massive overpopulation in the jail. We don't want people in jail for 5 days on a driver's license charge. There's a lot of work that has to happen to obviously be able to reduce some of those populations in jail. But jail population is what you mentioned. Drug charges. Okay, so drug charges in terms of a drug user, most of those people need help. Some of them get that help in jail. Well, listen. So in Jacksonville, again, that I can comment to, we run one of the most successful in-jail drug treatment programs in the country.
In your opinion?
No, one of the most successful in the country, not in my opinion. We run it here in Jacksonville, the Matrix House. So some of those arrests have actually saved people's lives because they've gotten the treatment that they could not get anywhere else. Unfortunately, they had to get it in jail, but they got it. And then they were able to be released back into society without a drug problem. Now, when you talk about drug traffickers and those type of things, they deserve as much time as they can get because they are polluting society.
Being charged as adults. What about that?
So that's a state attorney's office question.
No, I get that.
Right.
So I'm saying, how do you really feel this body cam is really going to help us with the real issues that are in this city and in this country?
So body cameras are a tool, as I mentioned. They're not a magic bullet. They don't solve all these problems. But when you talk about juveniles being arrested or charged as an adult, I'm sure you followed along.
And the juveniles being reported being underage. Is that
It depends on the circumstances. Again, look at the policy. It guides you through the juvenile issue. Yeah, please read it, and it guides you right through it. In terms of juveniles and arrest, if you follow along, we just signed a new MOU in Duval County and the whole Fourth Circuit to increase the use of the juvenile civil citation that diverts juveniles away from jail and to treatment programs and other type of diversionary programs to keep them out of the criminal justice system on those minor first-time offenses that in years past have landed them in the criminal justice system, which really gives you a record and not much else in terms of treatment or setting you on the right path. Sure, but again, I think you've seen a commitment from the state attorney and law enforcement nationwide. It's implemented today. We just signed it. We signed it about a month ago. So. But please take some time and read that policy. I think you'll be happy with what you see.
Gary Snow, followed by Denise Hunt.
Thank you, Brad.
I'd like to thank Sheriff for holding this forum. Apparently, I didn't know if everyone understood that this was a forum about the body camera program. It seemed that the citizens of Jacksonville have taken this time to ignorantly come in here and speak about events that are irrelevant or do not pertain to the body camera program. And as I can say, you know, the ignorance by some people, again, I can say. I have a couple things real quick. No matter what side we're on, I believe that the body camera program is going to create an equilibrium between misconduct by our police officers and misconduct by citizens. There have been numerous, we have launched these body camera programs in several cities, and I think JSO has worked with San Diego on their program. You know, a recent report by the Cambridge University showed that 93% fewer complaints with the body cameras, police equipped with body worn cameras received 93% fewer complaints from the public. Researchers in South Florida conducted a report in 12 months between March 2014 and February 2015. They found out that use of force incidents dropped by 53%, and citizen complaints against those officers also dropped by 65%. And it goes on. Cleveland Police, citizen complaints against our officers dropped by nearly 40%. Body-worn cameras in Rialto, California, 88% reduction in the number of citizen complaints between the prior year. Body-worn camera results in Mesa, Arizona, 40% fewer total complaints. The question is, I'm saying that these body cameras are not only going to hold police accountable for their misconduct, but it's also going to hold the public accountable for false accusations and false complaints against our police officers. It has been noted, and it is a fact. And I support these body cameras, and I believe the citizens of Jacksonville should also support the body camera program. On another note, some people have brought my name up again. I thought this was a body camera forum. If JSO has a problem with me using their emblem on my Facebook page, if Sheriff Mike Williams simply asks me to take it down, I will. It's called comply. It's called when the police ask you to do something and you comply. You follow. I got one other thing.
So move real quick, Mr. We would like you to take it down. So we would. We would like you to take the you're asking everybody to take that down. Yes,
Denise Hunt, followed by Joe Ross Sr.
Hello, Sheriff Williams.
Hey, Denise, how are you?
I'm kind of nervous because I'm not used to being around this many police officers. Kind of makes me nervous. I'm glad to hear you did go ahead and ask them to take that down. It goes a long ways.
And in fairness, we're asking everybody who's using it now to take it, to not to stop using it. So.
Right. You know, I was just thinking, I'm just going to talk to you from my heart right now because there's so much at stake in this city. So many lives are at stake. You know, in 1963, Martin Luther King had a dream. And he gave his famous I Have a Dream speech. I have a dream tonight that I will one day live in a city where I don't have to have body cameras because I will be able to trust the Jacksonville Sheriff's Office to be transparent, truthful, honest, fair, and deliver equal justice. Okay. Do you share that dream? And if so, will you give me your personal word that you will look at those body camera pictures? And I don't care about what Sheriff, State Attorney Melissa Nelson. I don't care about Mayor Lenny Curtis' decision. I want you as a man of God,
a man with integrity, to look at those cameras and say, if it's wrong, you will hold those officers accountable, and you don't have a problem with sending them to jail like anybody else. That's all we're asking for, sir. Equal justice. We don't want anything else. We're not wanting any more. Just equal justice. And that's not being done in this city. And we can do a better job. But it takes you being honest. It takes those police officers being honest. And it takes me, the activist, to encourage the people to stand up and work with police to, make sure crimes are reported and all of that. So will you give your word tonight?
So absolutely. Let me tell you this. Not only me, but I can promise you that every officer in this room wants the exact same thing. Every officer in this room wants the exact same thing. It's not just me. You've got an agency full of men and women down there that want that exact same thing. Listen, we're not perfect. We got work to do, clearly. But again, I think we've established a good track record up to this point of holding people accountable.
Okay, and then when you do that, go ahead. This is real simple. We can start this thing off right. We can get this party started off right. Go ahead and call Mayor Curry, get together with State Attorney. Go and drop them Jacksonville 5. It's a bogus charges. You know it. I know it. You admit that you did it wrong. Just start it on an even keel, Sheriff Williams. Let those people go, drop the charges, and let's start again. It's real simple. Even Ronald Reagan said, it's real simple, but we don't have the courage to do. It's really simple. And you're a big Ronald Reagan Republican fan. So just do what's simple, right? Drop the charges. Call Melissa Nelson and, hey, Melissa, can you drop the charges? Listen, okay?
Perfect. Thank you, Denise. I appreciate it.
Joe Ross Sr., followed by F.C. Howard.
Yes, sir. Good evening.
My name is Joe Ross. I'm a member of the Northside Coalition. Sheriff, I got involved. Can't hear you. Sheriff, I got involved in this organization because I feel the need to be able to trust the sheriff. And as a result of that, I can't get over the fact that there is a pattern of shooting unarmed black men. There is a pattern, and with that said, that forced me into being part of an organization where I could collaboratively try and sort through barcodes and the associated protocols, policies, procedures, all of those things are objectives or strategies to be able to improve community relations, create transparency, and to at least make me feel that I'm going to get fair share.
Sure.
Today, right now, I don't feel this. And if the body cam, the procedures, and all of that is going to be the ultimate solution, I think that's part of one component of an overall comprehensive effort, and that's going to have to involve the conduct of the officer. And I'm asking that you answer this question: is it appropriate to use deadly force on an unarmed person?
So let me say this. I think you've heard me tonight say multiple times. This doesn't fix all of these issues. It doesn't. It is a great tool. It's a very powerful tool. It's going to work well for this community. But it doesn't. I can't flip the switch and say all these problems go away. That ain't how it works. Again, a great tool, and I really believe that. Listen, if I didn't believe it was a great tool, I wouldn't have spent 15 months up to this point investing time and effort and energy into building, what I think is a fantastic policy up to this point. And again, leveraging the community for their support, all of that, getting input from the community. It is a good project. But again, not the ultimate, not the magic bullet, not at all. And I'm glad to hear you say that. That's part of the expectation we want to set with the community. That, look, this is a piece of the equation. Not the only piece, but a piece. We've got to continue to work, as I said before, not to repeat myself too much, but build those relationships, down in neighborhoods where we have really some of the most challenged neighborhoods. We've got to be down there building relationships in those neighborhoods. It's as simple as that, and we work on that every single day. So to your question, so when is it appropriate for an unarmed person to be shot by the police? There are circumstances where that could be appropriate. Again, depending on the environment. Every single case is different. You have to look at is he unarmed but trying to take the officer's gun? Is he unarmed but is he, does he have a pipe or does he have access to something? Is he reaching for something? All of those things are factors. Not one of those makes it justified, but that, in totality of the circumstances, is all reviewed by the state attorney, and they make the determination of whether or not the officer violated the law or not. So, does that answer your question? Aside from those instances I just gave you, no. So if you're not armed, there's no reason you should be shot by the police, right? But if there are other factors and you don't have the gun in your hand, but see what I mean? So to your question, it depends on the circumstances every time. It does. Okay.
Bessie Howard, followed by Artist Worthy.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Essie Howard. I'm with the Northside Coalition's Jacksonville. I've heard a lot of talk. I heard a lot of questions thrown at you. My first one is, do y'all give police officers psychological evaluations?
Yes.
Evaluations?
We do. So we give police officer candidates psychological evaluations that they have to pass before they're hired. And after any critical incident, those police officers go back through a psychological assessment and are not returned to duty until a psychologist says they are fit for duty.
And my other one is, do you train, I know y'all spend a lot of money training these officers.
Absolutely.
And why do they always take kill shots? I saw an incident, it was the first time I saw it, where the police chased a dude down Liberty Street. They wrecked the car. Dude jumped out the car because he got injured. He was disoriented. I ain't talking about bang incident. But this police jumped out of his car and he never pulled his taser. He said, get out. Get out. But the guy was kind of ordinary. And that's when he pulled his taser, but he didn't use it because the dude got down. But the other police officer, he jumps out of his car with his gun. And the police down there handcuffed and say, you know what I mean?
Sure.
And the other police wanted to kick him. He said, I got you. I mean, you spend a lot of money training these officers to serve the public. Train them not to kill people. They don't have to take a kill shot. They shoot them in the leg. Because they're unarmed anyway. Shoot them in the leg.
So let me ask you a question. What happens if we shoot them in the leg and they die?
Well, you didn't shoot the killer when you shot him in his head or his chest.
Sure.
Shoot him in his leg.
So let me tell you, let me, I got you. I understand.
People robbing people, doing all this,
right.
And fighting, you know.
Right.
But if you got a choice, you don't have to kill him. You go home at night, he'll go to the hospital, and he didn't go to jail. You understand what I'm saying? They don't have to kill people. You know, if you want the community to trust you, because you're the law in this town.
Sure.
And if you train those officers not to take a kill shot in everything will be all right.
So,
Before Mr. Artis comes.
Thank you for your
it's
comment.
almost 8 o'clock and we have 12 more
Good
cards.
afternoon.
Mr. Artis,
Good evening.
1 second, please. If you would, please get to your question. We only have 30 more minutes and 12 cards.
First of
Thank
all,
you.
thank my sheriff. He and I have walked a lot of walks together in the heat. He's the first sheriff that gave me permission. I don't have to go to the sheriff. I'm going to Tallahassee on business. I go to the person over the staff in the zone, which is the chief. He gave me permission, which is the chief. I don't have to go to his office anymore. And I appreciate that.
yes, sir.
Really do. And speaking about organization, I think I belong to more organizations than most people in here. If you go to Fulton and Broadfield, go to that organization. Go to all the way up to the United States Supreme Council. And it also passed for different terms. And people talking. But let me tell you something. Body cameras is going to be an asset to everybody. We need body cameras. And let me tell you something else. To talk about this, that, and the other. Let's get positive. First of all, I'm going to offer a solution. If he don't turn it off, or he don't want to go to the bathroom, I don't either. But now, here we're going to go to offer. If an officer have on that camera a roll call, turn it on in the office. If an officer needs to go to the bathroom, match that button. I'm Officer 5, put me to the cell, match the button down, tell me you off duty. When you come back off duty, match the button. I'm Officer 5, put me back to the cell. It's as simple as ABC. Can't get any practice of that. And back to kill, back to train. Let me tell you something about that. I was going here. Tell you something. There is no academy in America going to teach you other than fire, send a man if you can, backed up by whatever it takes. Whatever it takes. Whatever, if the whole clear to do his job. Eliminate the third. Now, I want to tell you something else. You see my hand right here? There's not a man in here I can't kill with my bare hand. You all hear me? There's not a man in here I can't kill with my bare hand. So if I'm using my bare hand, if we can take you out, if you got a gun, what are you going to do? Shoot me! And trust me, the next thing I'm going to say, I'm going to sit down. Why do we allow our kids to ride up down these streets at night with an AK in their car?
Thank you for your comments. Hey, let me say something real quick. So I didn't expand on this in the previous comment, and he brought up some great points. But in terms of shooting to kill, we don't shoot to kill. We shoot to stop the threat. As soon as the threat is over, the shooting stops. And that is the training standard that you see across the country, nationwide. We don't do anything special here. We train to that standard, again, across the country. The ability to shoot people in the arms and the legs is, and quite frankly, unrealistic in these environments. It looks great in the movies. It doesn't work in real life. Never has and never will. But again, you got to look at each one of those circumstances individually. We talked about the unarmed guy. What about? I hate to call you out, Lieutenant. Would you stand up for me, please? What about Lieutenant Smith? She might be 5 foot tall. I'm not sure. Maybe she's 5 foot tall. What about a guy who's 6'6", 270 pounds, with not an ounce of fat on him? Besides, he doesn't like her tonight, and he's going to kill her tonight. But he doesn't have a gun. I mean, so every one of those factors weighs into that decision. The officer's stature, suspect stature, again, all those other things that I mentioned. So it's not an easy solution. Again, back to the time and effort on these investigations. All those things are factored in, and all those things are part of what we pull together and the state pulls together to try to make that determination. So I hope that helps. It's a very brief explanation to a very complicated subject, but I hope that helps a little bit. So.
If we have James Eddie, followed by E. John Winter.
My question is, you mentioned about actually if someone wants to turn off the cameras and you give them the okay. But one problem I've seen just recently was they just released the videos, the camera videos from cops at the call center. Will there be protocols in place? So I know the media wants that information, but is there sometimes that information shouldn't get out to the public?
Right.
I don't know if I think people not even watch it because the people coming out of the calls didn't have the right or able to say, don't film it.
Sure. So to answer that, the public records exemptions that we have, so we have to follow the law. These videos become part of public record. And the public records exemptions for cases involving ongoing investigations, identification of victims, all that, we will take that. We would take that exemption and not release those, or release them redacted. So at least you won't be able to identify people on those videos. So you will see us in the next few years, not just us, probably many agencies around the state, look to increase some of the exemptions directly related to video and public records because of what you can see in a video, but increase the exemptions that we can use again to protect people's privacy. Because right now, Florida's public record laws are very broad, and it really is a challenging environment to work in terms of what you can release. Not a whole lot is exempt, so a lot of it is obviously mandated by law, has to be released if asked for, outside of those exemptions. So we would hope that we maybe expand some of that, not a lot, but enough to again to protect people's privacy when it comes to body camera footage specifically. So good question.
E. John Winters, followed by Ken Stokes. E. John? Ken Stokes.
Good to see you, Sheriff.
Yes, sir.
Quick question. I understand that the FOP is not happy about this, especially in terms of the collective bargaining. So if they move forward with the lawsuit, would this slow up the trial process for rolling out these body cams? That's question one. Second question is, if they win, if possibly without a lawsuit, should the community be concerned about the body cams being pulled back off the street?
So let me roll this out. Right, there is currently no lawsuit. There's a PERC. They filed a PERC complaint. The basis of the PERC complaint is they believe the body camera policy should be part of collective bargaining. So we took the position that we did not agree with that. So we had a hearing about probably a month ago, and we were looking for a 45 to 60 day turnaround on the decision. So if the decision is that body cameras are part of collective bargaining, we will just bargain it. So we would take the policy, the FOP will be able to weigh in, and you bargain that. Keep in mind now, we have invited the union from the very beginning to be involved in that. So they just really want the ability to say by contract that they can sit at the table. They were invited by me to sit at the table, but the next sheriff may have a different view of that, and they may not be invited to sit at the table. So they wanted to really lock in contractually that they were able to sit at the table when it comes to body cameras. And our position was, we followed the contract to the letter this time and how we proceeded. But what other pieces of equipment then become part of collective bargaining? Are we on a slippery slope to that? Really a city collective bargaining issue that will be decided in the state of Florida by our case here. If it is part of collective bargaining, we bargain it and move forward. So there hasn't been, as of yet, a lawsuit to stop the rollout of the body camera program. And there's nothing, I can tell you from my perspective, I don't believe there's anything in the policy that they would be so opposed to as to try to file a lawsuit and stop it.
I understand they've asked some of the officers who were going to participate in the initial rollout. Will that, have you replaced those officers, or how are you going forward?
Yeah, we have. We've replaced those officers. And part of that was some confusion about discipline during the body camera pilot. So two phases here. We are not disciplining officers during the pilot for having it on or off at the wrong time. That's what we're trying to work out. So it's going to be bumpy in the pilot. We understand that. And it's even outlined in the policy. There's a note in the policy that says officers will not be disciplined for use of the camera within reason. You know what I'm talking about, on-off issues during the pilot program. That won't happen. If you are violating policy and caught on camera, absolutely that will be used. I mean, that is really a no-brainer in my mind. So, and keep in mind, if there were no body camera footage, you have other officers that would bring that complaint forward. You have citizens that will bring that complaint forward. So the body camera footage will not be the catalyst for that complaint. It's going to be the officers and the citizens around that officer acting inappropriately that bring that forward. And that footage will be part of that investigation. But in terms of disciplining an officer because they don't operate the camera correctly or it's not on when it should be on during the pilot, we're not going to do that. And again, so we can learn the ins and outs of that process. There's things that we don't even know yet in terms of on, off, in and out of the car. How does that impact what they do? We want the cameras to be a seamless part to integrate them seamlessly in the daily routine of the officers. It's going to be a change at the beginning. It really is. But that's what the pilot is for. So, and does that answer your question? So that was part of the concern, but I think we've got that addressed.
Thank you, sir.
Yes, sir. Thank you, Kim.
James Muhammad, followed by Joyce Brown. James. Joyce Brown.
Yes, ma'am. Zone 3. Good. Good deal. Thank you for that. I appreciate it. Good.
Now, my question is, let's see, has any officers in your force ever worked with the cameras before they came to JSO?
That's a good question. I don't know the answer to that. I don't believe so. I don't believe so.
And the second, will the cameras have any facial recognition capabilities?
They will not have that embedded in the camera. No, they won't.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
LaVoyce Partlow, followed by Andrea Hardin.
Good evening.
Good evening.
First thing, the question I got, first of all, is why do we, the people of this city who pay your salary and everybody else who's supposed to protect and serve us, why do we always have to be the one to ask? You know, we have to ask for you not to kill us. We have to ask for your protection in our communities, but I'll leave that hanging just like that. Next thing is this body camera. Is it going to be high tech or low tech that you chose? You know, I hear you talking about pushing a button and pushing a button on, pushing a button off. It seems to me like, you know, with today's technology, Bluetooth, you step out the car, this thing comes on. You step in the car, this thing goes off. That's just a thought that I have, okay? Now, community involvement. I mean, do we get a voice in what camera you pick? Do we get a voice in this fraternal order of police who we're paying their salaries and all, I'm just a poor country boy. I just don't understand that if I'm boss, you do what I say do. Okay? Next, police in this, their training. My question now is police and testing. When they shoot somebody, do they, just like I see the body laying there and the coroner gets it, and the first thing they do is they check that person's blood. Do they check this person who does the shooting? Does he get tested? And recourse. Well, I've been victimized by the police, and I'm still waiting on internal affairs. Okay. And when you talk about killing a person, I mean, to me, it's really upsetting because I remember an incident where a man was trying to kill a car and he got killed. He had a knife and was stabbing the car. The police killed him. So, with that, I guess JSO gets the last word, or do we, the people who pay the salaries and supposedly support this organization, who gets the last word in this?
So, but hey, will you stay at the microphone so I'll make sure I cover all those, if you would, just so I could, I'm going to try to address that if I can. So, high tech, low tech, on off, So you can do anything with money. I'll tell you that, right? So, but there's going to be some limits to what, because of the amount of cameras we have to buy, what we can provide the officers. There is some technology out there that we like that has a automatic on feature in certain circumstances. The gun comes out of the holster, the camera comes on, whether it's on or not, that type of thing. So we're looking at that now, again, part of the research that we will do moving forward. We'd like to take as much of the effort away from the officer as we can. To have certain situations where the camera comes on automatically. So great point, and that is something we're looking at. Hit me with the second question again. You had about 4 there.
Okay, high tech, low tech. Why do we have to ask? Okay, we elected you.
Right.
Okay, so as we elect you, I heard you mention the next sheriff. I don't know if there's term limits on the sheriff.
We do have term limits, 2 terms. Right.
Well, hopefully you'll do a good job and you'll be with us again so we can move forward with whatever projects that you bring about.
Sure.
That are most, for the community.
Right. So let me address that real quick. It's not really about asking; it's about being part of the conversation. And this is a great example of that. So we've had 6 town hall meetings all around the city, really just about body cameras. As you heard earlier, we meet once a month in every neighborhood in this 19 different places around the city, and we meet with the policemen that work in that neighborhood, with those residents of the neighborhood, the zone commander, and we talk about issues that are important. Any issue you want to talk about, but issues that are important to the neighborhood. So we try to create situations where we have ongoing dialogue and opportunities for the community to weigh in and give us their perspective.
Well, yes, I understand. I remember the Shadco also.
Oh, outstanding. Good deal.
I try to get abreast of what's going on. I guess my next one was the testing of the police.
Yes.
They kill a person, they drag that body to the morgue.
Right.
And they run it, he has this in his system, he has that in his system. What does this officer have in his system?
So we currently are in conversations now. That is not a part of our follow-up investigation. And we're in conversation now about making that part of the investigation. So, great point.
Would that have to go before the fraternal order of police and be a part of their contract and such that tax dollars are going to have to be?
So there's a lot of things that impact that. I'm not sure that the FOP is involved in that process at all, to be honest with you. But again, something that we have to dig into and we are looking into at this point.
I hope that's the last question.
I think that was it. Thank you.
Good evening.
Good evening.
And my first question is, in terms of the body cams, if I have an encounter with the police and I want to access that footage, would I have to acquire an attorney and go through a process to be able to look at the footage? Or would I simply need to come down to the police station and fill out a form?
Just come down and fill out, make a public records request, and you can have the footage. Or there may be a fee associated with it. That is driven by state statute. No, it's affordable. All that is not determined by us. It's determined by state statute, and it is affordable. I think an entire DVD of footage is $5 or something like that. So it is affordable. So a small fee, but yes, come make the public records request, and we by law have to give that to you.
And the turnaround time?
Turnaround time is depending on the volume, but depends on the flow, but not anything out of the ordinary.
And the other question I have in terms of the FOP opposing the body cameras, is there a process where they make their feelings known and we as a community can come and say how we feel about it, since it's us that's also looking involved in the process?
So the FOP is a labor organization. So there are laws that obviously protect and guide how employers deal with labor organizations. So this is the environment that's in. So it's not an opposition to body cameras, but it's how the body cameras, from the FOP's perspective, how the body cameras are put into the working environment of the employee that they represent. That's their concern. Not an opposition to the camera, but how we involve the employee and put the camera into play. So again, a process that we will work through, and regardless of the outcome, we'll work with it and get the cameras on the street.
Okay, now we're talking about allowing them to look at footage before they write a police report?
So as of July 1 this year, that is a state law that we have to allow officers to do that. Now keep in mind now, the body cameras are not designed to be a gotcha system for police officers. We want the officer to write the best report he can, and if it requires him to look at that video and then write a report, that's okay. Because again, what happened on video is the truth, correct? So you want that as part of the investigation. But again, state law, as of July 1, statewide, officers have the ability to look at body camera footage before they write reports.
I have to apologize. The next person, Shakar, I believe is the last name. Thank you. Maceo George.
All right, good evening.
Good evening.
I'll be quick because you answered some of my questions earlier concerning the body cam. And my question concerning the on and off switch, because I hate to have a situation where the officers involved with this happened or that happened and the body cam was turned off. So my concern with that, we have some type of mechanism that when they request officer to turn it off, that if he forgets that there's some kind of buzzer or some kind of device to remind him that it's turned off. And also you mentioned that you like to have something when the officer gets out of the car, when he gets back in there, that's good, because that's what the body camera is all about. Having that camera on when it should be on. So when you do
Absolutely.
virtual cameras, make sure you do have something like that. Make sure it's on when it should be on. Because that's what we are concerned about. Making sure it's recording the facts. So you did answer a lot of my questions earlier, so I'll leave it at that. Thank you.
Thank you. And, the first step to that is a strong policy, obviously that we can use to guide the officers' actions. And so, again, I would encourage you to look at that. We got that policy online, and it covers a lot of your questions and concerns. Thank you.
No further questions.
All right, no further questions. Well, listen, I want to thank everybody for coming out tonight. Hang on, Senator Gibson has a question. Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am, please do. You have the floor.
Thank you so much, Sheriff Williams. My name is Joyce Morgan. I'm State Council Member for District 1. First of all, I want to thank the Sheriff for this very informative session tonight. Secondly, though, I need to thank the citizens for coming out tonight. You guys were amazing. You were thought-provoking. What you had to say, the sheriff needed to hear, the public needed to hear. I think that it begs us to look at what we're doing, how we're doing it, and making sure that you stay involved with this process and never leave what you're doing. Sheriff, I think that the citizens are certainly on target, and you're on target, and because of that, I have to stay on target. So, know that you're going to be involved.
I appreciate it.
So, we're going to spend a lot of time together.
I like it. I'm ready.
So, thank you again. Thank you to the community for coming out tonight. I really do appreciate you, Sheriff, but I appreciate you, community, for being here tonight. Thank you.
Outstanding. Thank you.
Well, good evening to everyone, and thank you for all of those who stayed. Thank you, Sheriff, not only for tonight. It's a little high for me. I like to move around a little bit, but for taking my calls, returning my calls, not just once. I've met with the sheriff since he became the sheriff more than once, and I appreciate that because that tells me that you have commitment to this community, not to me, but to our community. And you all need to give him a hand. It is a two-way street, and those were our conversations that we have had. That yes, he's engaged in the community, but the community has to continue to be engaged, and not when things go wrong all the time. You have to stay engaged when things are going right. So when something happens that does go wrong, it can be fixed faster than you think. And that's the way this community has to build trust. And that goes both ways. Body cameras don't build trust. That's not the magic, the silver bullet, or the red pill, or the green pill, or the blue pill, when it comes to community and police relations. It's an extra step, it's an additional tool in the toolbox for that trust, I believe, to build a trust between community and the sheriff's office. Let's face it, folks, if policing was easy, everybody would be doing it. Right? There'd be no shortage of state troopers or police officers, because everybody would be doing it. But it's not easy. And we have to remember, yes, there are police officers who make mistakes, but we can't paint every police officer or sheriff's officer with the same brush. We cannot do that. Or else we will never have the relationship that we need to have to protect us in our own community. Because when you call 911 and something happens to you, you want somebody from JSO to show up, right? All right, and you don't want him to shoot the ground if somebody got you by the neck, do you? Come on, that's not real. I don't condone wrong, but everybody's not wrong. Every police officer, every sheriff's officer is not wrong. They're also human beings, and they have families to go home to. So let's understand that in totality. And I trust you, I trust your judgment. And no matter how much training somebody may have, they all may have the same training, but they're not born of the same mother. They don't have the same father. They don't have the same proclivities. So some people will make mistakes, and I believe that you will do the right thing when they do. And so thank you for being here. Body cameras, I wanted the body camera policy that Senator Smith and the committee debated. And so I understand that the public records exemptions, he didn't say it, but those are state. It's a state law, it's not local. So having access to the footage is because of the First Amendment Foundation, who is always, some things I think The other thing we wanted was only people who were actually involved in an incident to be able to access footage as well. But I'm not giving up on some of those ideas. The session starts early this year. We'll start early in January instead of March like we usually do. So we'll start committees early. And those ideas that you have, that you want to have more privacy protection of when those body cameras begin in full force, you need to make sure that you get that information to me too, as your state senator, because the legislation that we passed in Tallahassee impacts what they do locally, and I know I talk way longer than I should.
Can I ask you a question?
Thank you very much.
Can I ask you a question?
Thank you,
Can I ask you a question?
You can.
Since you represent us in the state, I don't think it's fair for a police officer to review the footage before he writes his report. Now, I mean, I heard him say that's a state law.
That's correct.
But do he have to honor that?
Yes, he does.
He has to honor that.
Yes.
I think y'all need to go back to work.
I'm not sure that there's any trickery involved in reviewing what you did. The report actually is more accurate.
Actually, to get civil
The
rights.
report is
It is
actually.
against civil rights principles for them to be able to look at it first. It's cheating.
Actually, it's not cheating.
It is cheating. That's
You
just
are
ignorant.
right, exactly
Looking
what
at
you did.
evidence.
Well, then we will disagree.
We are against that.
We will disagree. You don't have to yell at
We
me.
are against it. We are against it.
Okay, thank you.
Time to go.
Councilman President, did you want to speak? We'd like to invite anybody who'd like to be interested in the Sheriff's Watch to pick up an application that's available on the table as you leave your report. Thank you.
Hey, thank you all for coming out. Good night.